Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode number 398. And I think from now on, when there's more than two podcasters gathered, it should be called a confusion of podcasters, because we're usually very confused. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn. It only takes just one of me to be confused.
Depends on the podcaster. Sometimes you can be a group by yourself.
I resemble that remark.
I am a group to myself, for sure.
Did you guys have a good week?
Yeah, not bad.
Do anything fun?
I finished Iron Fist.
Oh, I'm halfway through.
Only halfway?
I only got 2 episodes to watch this week.
No.
I had reading to do.
That's good.
Why do you look at me when you say that?
I couldn't watch it at work. I had reading to do. I'm making Sarah watch some of it.
I finished it, and I've been reading 2 books at the same time. So
you also barely sleep.
Well, that's true.
And I don't sleep as much either, but that's not for different reasons.
Yeah, I finished the series. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Much better than the first season. And then earlier in the week, I watched Smokey and the Bandit, which I've seen probably 100 times. But
I didn't get that in.
That was
I felt
because
really
of
bad.
Bert dying earlier in the week.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mentioned I was reading, besides the book for homework next week, and the two title series that we're reviewing this week that I also read this
the comics.
week. Yeah. I'm reading that Bob Woodward book that came out on Tuesday, Fear, Trump in the White House.
Is it good?
How is it?
No surprises so far.
Is it well written then?
Yeah, it's. I think Bob Woodward certainly written much better than the previous 2 books I've read. The other 2 were written well, but this one I think is more interesting. But like I said, no surprises yet, so we'll find out.
I'm really curious to read it, but there's a part of me that is honestly a little worried that things will wind up being so much worse than I suspect they are.
Well.
It's like, maybe I don't need that.
I'm only on chapter 17, and there haven't been any huge revelations. So.
But you're also maybe a little bit more plugged in since
maybe because of work and I read Fire and Fury and
those other 2
the
books
Collusion
too.
one. So
Did
that was it. That's
Sean?
all I did this week.
Went and saw The Predator.
How is The Predator?
It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. I think maybe part of it that we went with a group, and that helped immensely because you're always able to kind of feed off feed off each other. And I think my expectations were set low enough that I was pleasantly surprised by it. However, having said that, it's not the Predator movie I think most people want, which is why it's getting such terrible reviews. And it's certainly not the Predator movie I would have made. It feels vastly different than any of the other installments, which is a good thing. I mean, because it's not just, hey, let's go back into the jungle and fight the thing. But it does some cool things, and then it does some things that you're like, I don't know how I feel about that. But it's set up for another one.
Of course it did.
Find out whether or not they choose to go there or not. So we did that. I took part in a confusion of podcasts today.
Did you?
I did. Because I'm now on my second one. I'm double dipping tonight. I was pleased as punch to be invited to appear on the Five-ish Fangirls 200th anniversary episode.
Congratulations to them on reaching
Very
200.
much congratulations to them.
Absolutely.
It's as I said on their cast, the far corners of the internet are littered with podcasts that only made it to 30, and then people kind of gave up and faded away from it, and the fact that they've hit 200 is something to be proud of.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anything else? Did you do anything?
I went and did a panel at a local convention.
That's all you did this week.
Pretty much watched a couple episodes of Iron Fist and did that.
What was that like? I wasn't there.
It was good. Well, my co-hosts on the panel were kind of sketchy, but
those guys, you can't really trust them, especially when they just grab them from anywhere.
Yeah, you don't know who they're going to put up on stage with you.
Now, Sean and I were there as well, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, at TopCon, a nice conversation about the upcoming 13th Doctor.
Yeah, that was actually some of the most fun I've had on a panel, which is fun.
Yeah.
I mean, besides ones that we've, moderated.
Besides guest panels.
But just kind of a discussing a topic panel was one of the more more enjoyable panels. And we didn't have a huge group, but there was quite a bit of engagement. Yeah, there between us and the people in the audience, what I thought was appropriate.
Yeah, I like that. The fact that we were able to interact with him a lot instead of just, talk to them.
Sean got his exercise running the mic around the room.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased to hear you say that, because I thought afterwards, I was like, I'll be honest, that went way better than I was expecting it to go.
Even considering the setup of we only had one microphone and a little speaker to deal with, but
just I kind of go into things with two different mindsets. There's the part of me that's like, I need to be prepared, and I want to have done my research, and I want to, I want to wow them. I want to be impressive. And there's the other part of me that goes, you're so much more with it when you're unprepared, because it's just off the cuff and it feels more natural and loose. And I think I feel like I'm too stiff when I come prepared for something.
I absolutely abhor not being prepared. I have to be prepared when I go into
and I think
I can't do it off the cuff.
It depends on what it is.
Then I feel like I'm reaching for things to talk about.
I think if it's a guest panel, I 100% agree. I'd rather be prepared so that we don't sound like idiots. But with just us, it's kind of like, okay. And there were a couple moments that I kind of blanked out when I don't have anything else to ask.
You did a good job being kind of the moderator.
Oh, thanks.
You did.
But no, I thought it went really well.
Kind of forced Sean to do it since he's the one that got us into it. So.
Yeah.
Take it away, Sean. No, I'm glad we
did a good job.
I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
I was actually, I don't want to make this sound like I'm surprised by this, but I really enjoyed TopCon this year too. There was the average amount of vendors.
We did the best setup for what they're trying to do.
Ag Hall, I think there's too much going on in there, especially when we had to pause our panel a couple of times while they were making announcements down the way.
It's great for a vendor hall.
Yeah,
it's perfect for a vendor hall.
And that's what it's set mostly up for. But they had tabletop games there again this year. They had Amanda Bierce was there from Married with Children, and I had forgotten that she was in Fright Night, the original Fright Night film. She was the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which I totally had a crush on her when I was a kid. I remembered that as we were there. And then, of course, Noah Hathaway, who played the young boy
Atreyu.
Yeah, Atreyu in Battlestar. That was his character.
You guys go Never Ending Story. I go Battlestar.
Most people might remember Never Ending Story better than his part in Battlestar. And then I don't remember who the other actress was that was there. I feel bad.
Tracy Coco. Is that it?
Yeah, that sounds right.
She was a
Starfleet
kind of a background crewman on Next Gen, but she was in 40 or 50 episodes.
Yeah. And multiple movies.
Yeah, she has multiple.
She's got other credits, but that was the only thing that I recognized her, or didn't recognize her. I didn't even recognize her, but I knew she was from that, or in that.
Tracy Lee Coco.
She has the most stunning blue-gray eyes.
Smoky gray. So they had the 3 guests, and which was more than they had last year. And then they had some artists and some authors and things like that. And I thought it was I don't know, just well structured this year. I quite enjoyed it so much so. I went back Sunday morning. So
really?
Yeah, because Mason and Caitlin didn't go at all this year, but Mason didn't get a chance to go on Saturday when I was there for the panel. So he got up and I said, "Do you want me to take you down to TopCon?" And he said, "Yeah." So I took him down, and of course we paid his ticket to get him in and walked around. He looked at some stuff, and so it was. Unfortunately, we went early enough Sunday that we were in that Sunday lull, where there's just not as many people. Although from what I saw online, it picked up in the afternoon again. So a Sunday's always a slower day, fewer people.
Yeah.
People. I thought there was a good number of people there on Saturday too. So, but
as I was leaving, or a little before noon, it was really starting to pick up quite a bit.
I noticed that too because I left just probably. Maybe not even a half hour after you did. If you get a chance, you just want to see a 2-minute sample of some of the things at TopCon, go to our website, travelingthevortex.com, or go to our YouTube page. And I put up a little montage of clips there. Unfortunately, we didn't have any pictures or video of us on the panel. And because we didn't have the right recording equipment there, we weren't able to record the panel either. So unfortunately, that's lost in the ether, but
if you found us because of our panel, welcome.
Yes,
and I'd like to give a shout out
to
Gene Kincaid, who posted on our Facebook wall after the panel saying how much he enjoyed it.
I saw that. That's very cool.
Thank you very much. And welcome.
Yeah.
For the long-term listeners, we're going to be celebrating our 400th.
Well, even if you've only been listening for a couple of months. There. Oh, okay.
Way to spoil it, Glenn. For the long-term listeners who
but now you're,
in
now
the
you're
know,
setting up class sections, and that, I don't like that.
We're going to be celebrating our 400th
Quality, Sean.
episode.
Quality.
For the new people that are just
Diversity,
joining
Sean.
us, you
we
may
just
not
had
know.
a panel about diversity, Sean. Go ahead.
For the newbies who may not know, we're going to be celebrating our 400th episode.
Well, I think if they're looking at this episode and going, hey, this is 398, I think they probably know that 400 is coming.
Maybe
I don't
we're
know. Sesame Street hasn't make it count that high.
We feel like 400 is a bit of a milestone, and so we have some goodies in the prize vault, some epic prizes of game show proportions. Game show proportions not guaranteed. And we thought we'd like to do some giveaways for all of our listeners. And so how we're going to do this is if you go and like us on Facebook, that counts as an entry. If you follow us on Twitter, that counts as an entry. If you join the Goodreads Book Club, that counts as an entry. If you any interaction.
Follow us on Instagram.
What were some of the other ones? I don't remember now.
Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. Any of our social media platforms count as entries. And basically what you need to do then is just send us an email and let us know, hey, I follow you here, 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 and here. Even if you already follow us on those places, that's fine.
Yeah,
you're still entered. You don't have
you're
to,
entered as long as you're
you don't have to leave and then come back. That's
Right.
But just send us an email and
The requirement is that you send us an email and give us a heads up. Hey, I am, because the email is what enters you, and then what we do is we go verify your entries, and you get an entry for each one of those. So it is important for you to give us a heads up, say, hey, these are what I follow you on, so we can then go verify it. Because if we don't hear from you, then we have 400 and some likes on Facebook. I don't think all of those are going to be entries, especially if they're just people that don't listen to the show. So
Right.
make sure you email us, let us know.
And then if you leave a review of the podcast on, say, iTunes or other streaming services that allow you to do reviews, that's worth 2 entries. So a little added incentive because we like reviews. But then we'll throw them all in a fishbowl.
Better get fishbowl.
We'll take the fish out first, and then
Might be more fun to throw them in with the fish.
Might be hard to read afterwards.
Can we get a
better
piranha
laminate those.
and have Keith stick his arm in it and not tell him?
Piranhas live in the Amazon.
But
we have till now, from this episode until 400, because we'll actually
Until we record
We'll
400.
do those drawings on the recording of episode 400. So, and as is now, 400 will be recorded in 2 weekends from this release.
So go and stalk us, and then get your entries and win stuff.
Yeah,
Pretty simple.
cool.
Excellent.
All right. Well, shall we move on to some news?
Let's. So, along with a new promotional image poster, the BBC has announced the episode 2 title for the new season, along with details on both episode 1 and 2. Episode 2, The Ghost Monuments. Both episode 1 and 2 are written by Chris Chibnall, as we suspected but did not know for sure.
And if you want to read the synopses of the episodes, you can go online and find us, because we won't do that here.
No.
That might be a little too spoilery for some people.
Having read them, they're not very spoilery because you really don't know what they're talking about. There are words I recognize, but the context...
Did you say there's words you recognize,
Yes.
but the context isn't there?
Yeah.
I'm calling it now. The Ghost Monument is a return of that superhero.
I think I could probably... Oh, God, I hope not.
Well, maybe it's a monument to him.
Yeah, I hope not. Let's just stay away from that altogether. No returning characters, so we don't have to worry about that.
That's true. That's true.
I believe the exact quote was no returning villains.
Is River Song a villain?
No, but he also came back and qualified that she wasn't returning. So
That's true. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Anyways.
What else?
There's going to be a new kids book coming out featuring the 13th Doctor called The Secret in Vault 13 by David Solomons.
go back up to that artwork. That's cute.
Really good artwork.
It is really good artwork.
So
You should go check it out. It's pretty cool.
It's a perfect introduction to the series for young fans. It's age 7 and up. So there's going to be a paper, Kindle version.
I'm up.
You are up.
You're way up.
Yeah. Don't
Paperback and audio CD. Coming out November 1st in the UK and the 6th in the US. So just before Christmas.
It's almost like they planned that.
Almost. It's
They
uncanny.
might have.
It's almost like somebody in the marketing department went, you know when a good time to release something is? Right before a gift-giving holiday of some sort. Do we have one of those coming up?
No? Okay, I guess November then. Our last bit of news is Earthshock is going to be screened at the BFI, the British Film Institute,
There you go. For those of you that don't know what that is.
on London South Bank in November 17th. That's a Saturday.
Yep.
Ooh, I'm off.
It's going to be on midday, and will be the new upscaled HD version, which will be part of the Blu-ray set released that weekend.
Who's up for a road trip?
And a boat trip or a plane trip.
Not if you got the Muppet car.
Oh yeah.
We travel by map.
I thought it was interesting that there'll be a question and answer session, and the two people that are there are Matthew Waterhouse, friend of the show, Matthew Waterhouse, who played Edric, and Eric Sayward, who wrote the story.
I think those are good two good people to have.
But it's interesting that it's just those two people. It's
Peter Davison must have been busy.
Yeah, I was just saying, are the others just a little
He's got
too
a
busy?
convention that day.
I mean, because that's the all-star cast there. I'd say all-star, but that's the whole group now because Nissa and Tegan are both in that as well.
And they have all of them on the couch.
And
for the
David
Blu-ray
Banks
set.
for that
Yeah.
matter. So.
Tickets go on sale September 25th. So if you get yours and get to go, let us know how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
That's it for news.
All right. Well, shall we move on to feedback?
Let's.
For feedback this week, we have one from Mark McMarmite. He writes, "Hello, Vortex crew. Mark McMarmite here. Long-time listener, long-time caller. I think that saying usually goes differently. I always wanted to be one of the callers on Dr. Fraser Crane's show, but I guess this is a close second. I was wondering..."
Wait. Go ahead, Mark. We're listening.
Very good. "I was wondering if you had any advice on building a podcast. I've just started one, and since you guys are doing as well as you are, I was hoping you had some insight into attracting and maintaining an audience. Personally, I suspect that you drew your audience in with the dozen or so times that Sean started rewriting famous songs about Doctor Who. If my suspicions are correct, I'll have to practice my Weird Al Yankovic impression and whip out my copy of Waylon Jennings' Greatest Hits. The formula was to replace every 10th word with TARDIS, if I remember correctly." My secret's out.
It wasn't hard to figure out.
"Also, do you guys hang out much outside of the podcast, or is it usually just when you're recording? All the best. Stay hooey, Mark McMarmite." Glenn, tackle the first part of that question first as far as advice on building a podcast, because this was, I don't know if we've said this recently, but you were kind of the genesis of this.
Well, I was just the driving force behind the idea. When we kind of jumped into it, it was a learning process for us as we went along. We came up with the theme and the format and what we were going to do, and we all recorded around, as we said, a Logitech Rock Band microphone, all three of us talking into the same mic. But certainly I think you're looking for engagement. It probably is what you're looking for, and I think that's the thing that we've kind of learned through trial and error over the years. I think first of all, make sure you get your podcast on the big ones. Make sure you get it on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you get it on Google Podcasts. There's TuneIn, there's Spotify. Spotify is one of the harder ones to get on there. We're still going through the process ourselves on that. We're 7 years in. But get on those. You can go to all of those platforms, and they have forms that you can fill out. They all have really helpful information on how to submit your podcast. If you're on something like Podbean or some of those helpful podcast hosting stations, they're really good about giving you ideas and getting your podcast out there for you. In fact, Podbean and a couple of the other ones will actually automatically subscribe you or put your podcast on certain ones. I think TuneIn's one of them that goes automatically. There's one of them that's specifically uses Spotify. So if you're on that one, you've got a better in than anybody. But definitely get the podcast out there. Get it as on many carriers and as many services as you can. I think the number one thing that I think we discovered was, first of all, it was word of mouth. if you're doing I don't know what kind of podcast you're doing, but if you're doing Doctor Who, or if you're doing something that's a ready-made product, those are highly searched. People are always looking for genre podcasts. So I think you have a benefit if you're a genre podcast. If you're not, word of mouth is probably the most important thing. Get people to know, that you're there. Speak loudly. One of the things I think that we've been a lot better at, that we were really weak with at first, is get out there on Facebook, get out there on Instagram, get out there on Twitter, get out there on as many of the social media platforms as you can. Go to, like-minded groups on Facebook, and, I hesitate to tell you to go out there and just plug yourself, because I don't want you to go out there spamming a bunch of pages, but there are ways to get in, engage with somebody and start talking about, Doctor Who or something like that, and then getting the information into a conversation. There's a lot of easy, subtle ways to do that. So I say just get out there and pound the internet pavement and let people know you're there. And I think that they kind of come. You realize that, if I don't know about you guys, but I felt like we were just kind of speaking into a microphone at each other for probably the first several months, and then suddenly we started getting feedback, and that was when the realization kind of hit that, whoa, there are people out there listening to us. Yeah. And then I think, engage with your listeners, engage with your base. I think that's one of the things that we've been strong about, is we've made a lot of friends through the podcast. We try not to make anybody elitists, but we also make sure that those people that have been with us for a long time, you yourself included, we kind of treat you guys well, and we consider you friends. So I think the better you can engage with your core audience too, I think that's the best way to do that, because those people are going to go out there and they're going to go to bat for you. Heck, we spawned a sister podcast, as Sean talked about being on there earlier, from this, because we had a group of ladies that were core listeners that got together and said, hey, we got things we want to say too that aren't necessarily Doctor Who. And they did, and they bounced off that. Look at them, they're at 200 episodes, and it's, as Sean said, I say stick with it too. That would be the other thing, and I think that was Sean's advice earlier, is there are so many podcasts to get started, but then they walk away from it because they just don't feel like they're getting anywhere with anyone or getting the listeners.
It's easy, I think, to feel like you're screaming into the ether.
Yeah.
That there's just, you're sending your voice out in the void, and is anybody out there? And then you're pleasantly surprised when you find out, yeah, there is. So, Keith, if you had one piece, what would your advice be?
I would probably, just from listening to, this is one thing that we don't do a lot of, but one thing that I know a lot of other podcasts do is cross-promote. Yeah. So if you can get in with some other podcasts that will promote your show, and you will do that in exchange, we kind of determined that our format isn't very conducive to doing that. Yeah. But a lot of other podcasts take breaks in the middle to do just that. And that'd be a good way to get your podcast out there too.
Absolutely. I think the other thing is, I talked about the podcast services that are out there. If you're going at it on your own, as we are, you do have some of that money up front for a server, and you do have to have some of that money up front for, other small things like domain registration, things like that. If you're going that route, be aware that there are a lot of places you can go, Google Analytics and those kind of places you can sign up, and you can actually look and track your listeners, your subscribers, and things like that. That'll give you a really good indication as to how you're tracking. If you're going on alone. If you're going with one of these services, they offer that kind of stuff for you, so it'll make it a lot easier. But just jump in there, do it head first, and let people know you're there.
If I could
have fun with it.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing.
That's really big. If I could offer you one piece of advice, it would be don't sing.
Unless you got a good voice.
I'm sure you have a lovely voice, Mark, but I can't recommend that part of it.
Because people keep coming back and wanting it. And expecting it. Yeah. I mean, look at the Oodcast. They don't do a song.
See, if we
create a monster that way.
If we hadn't let Sean sing to begin with, we wouldn't be letting listeners down week after week when he doesn't have songs. So.
I like to think that's my part of the engagement, is how I'm keeping them entertained, how I keep them coming back.
Is he going to sing?
Maybe this is the week, and then it's not, and then maybe
every once in a while though you got to throw a crumb out there.
Otherwise, they just give up.
They'll
completely.
just go find other crumbs.
I can neither confirm nor deny, but there may be something in 400. There probably will be in 401. The 401 song may already be written. I'm not gonna.
I was gonna tackle his other question.
Oh yes, he had more. Sorry.
We used to hang out a lot more before life got in the way.
It's funny. I felt like maybe I'm wrong because my memory's spotty. I feel like we hung out a lot more outside the podcast before the podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And once we started getting together and talking every week, it was kind of like, I'll see him then.
I think it comes down to families and kids and personal obligations, things like that. We used to hang out a lot more. You guys used to hang out even more because you lived together for a while.
yeah.
But
and didn't have any kids between the two of us.
And
now we both have kids.
Yeah, we certainly. I think if we could, we would certainly hang out with each other a lot more. But life kind of gets in the way. So.
Yeah.
I kind of look forward to coming and recording on the weekends because I actually get to see you guys. But we certainly don't get to do much together anymore. But
that's just it. I've always said that I never want work to become work.
Right,
I always want it to be fun. I always want it to be something I enjoy doing. And there have been a couple of times where it's been like, oh man, I got homework to do this week for the podcast and I haven't got to it and it's Saturday night and blah, blah, blah. And then I think, but you're going to get to see Keith and Glenn, so that's worth it. And that really is. There was maybe some quiet rumbles about how far we wanted to go with this and how long we wanted to continue to do this once upon a time.
Well, I still have a benchmark, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I still have an end goal. I'm just not going to say what it is.
From 1/3 of this podcast, there was a potential end goal. And on my end, it's just, as long as I get to see you guys, it's worth it. So
I would agree.
Now, if that 1/3 decides to push it, then Keith and I will get together. And
if Sean angers me enough, then that might move that goal up.
Stay tuned. Episode 400. Sean brings the stick. I realize I haven't poked the bear in a while.
Well, Keith, how can people contact us?
Well, you can go to our website, travelingthevortex.com, and fill out the Send Us Feedback tab, or you can send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com.
Cool. Should we move on to some reviews?
Let's. I don't have a synopsis for the first 2 issues of the last 2 issues
there you go.
of the 11th Doctor.
And thank you, Mark. It was good to hear from you.
Yeah,
we haven't heard from you in a while, so it was good to hear from you.
11th Doctor, Into the Run, Silence, and the sapling converging into one. So I attribute a lot of my lack of remembering for it being so long ago, but I had forgotten about the silence that was chasing them.
The scream.
And so a lot of this felt like I was jumping in the deep end without much of a memory of what had happened previously. That being said, it was an all right ride.
Yeah, I enjoyed the last 2 issues. I was kind of the same way. It had been so long since I read it. I read the little, previously on to try to, not previously in order to kind of jog my memory, but it didn't really help much. But I had forgotten about the scream as well, but as soon as I saw it, it wasn't like, well, who's this?
I remembered right. Luckily, it's the second page.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the circumstances in which Alice found herself, I do not remember that.
I think it's quite funny that the two of you are sitting here talking about a silence going, I didn't remember this. I'm sitting here screaming internally, that's by design!
I went for that joke on purpose.
The Doctor and Alice, their memories gradually start coming back over this particular issue, which was reassuring because I kind of felt it was such a long stretch of, I can't remember this, I've forgotten this, I can't. And I was kind of getting a little tired of that, so it was a bit refreshing that started to come back early. I did like some of the panels when the Doctor was talking about previous adventures he had, and us getting to see some of these past villains.
Especially when they get in with the
Vord and the
console.
Crotons. And she makes the question about, there are aliens named after those stale bread things you put on salad. Well, yes, but these are spelled differently and as nasty crystalline metal energy vampires.
And what a great way to introduce the Hads to somebody who hadn't known anything about them.
Yep, I like that too.
Well, and the thing about this is it very much feels like a Stephen Moffat finale. It's kind of big. It's kind of bombastic. It kind of dumps you into the deep end out of nowhere.
At times, it's very confusing.
Yes, it's kind of like, it felt a lot like the Wedding of River Song.
Yeah.
A little bit.
That's a
because
fair.
it kind of
yeah.
drops you in, and you're in the middle of this really weird situation that you have no idea what's happening, and then you slowly kind of start figuring it out as you go along.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I would agree with
So in that aspect of it, I think they did a good job of making it true to his run.
What did you think of the homeless doctor on the street corner with a hodgepodge of looks from previous doctors?
I kind of enjoyed that.
Looks
I think
like
they gave him a better beard than he could actually grow.
seventh Doctor hat and the what do they call the scarf thing? Little
The cravat.
From the Sixth Doctor.
That's definitely a beard Matt Smith could not grow.
Yeah.
Or at least the Doctor, whenever he had to grow one.
It's only in his memories. I had kind of hoped they would tackle Jonesy's, because she has that memory of Jones performing on the stage, but then they didn't go far enough with me for it. I thought that would have been a nice callback. I mean, it was a nice homage or mention back to it, but I had hoped that maybe that memory would have been a little more impactful or part of the big climax of the series than it was. But
I think in a way that was very calculated, because it seemed almost like they were setting us up for it, and we were all going, "Oh, we're going to get to see Jonesy again!"
And then when we see him, it's actually the scream.
Yeah. And it just becomes no, we're not going to let you have that much fun. We want you to feel the pain and the terror.
There's also a callback to the Rainbow Dog too, which I thought was cool.
Going way back. Can we talk about this one panel? This is on I think page 19 or so, where the Scream and the Sapling integrate and take over the TARDIS console.
Yes,
and it's basically just a giant tree skull.
That's a bit of a.
It's kind of terrifying.
It really is.
Really great visual imagery throughout this series. And the planet full of sonic screwdrivers and
the planet that is the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought the conclusion was both clever but simple at the same time.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Having the Scream, he duplicates himself, and then because he's not alone,
and then he looks away. And
he looks
himself.
away, and then he forgets. Yeah, and so his whole essence is forgotten, which I thought was kind of weird, but
yeah, I'm not sure it
it's
entirely
sort of worked,
works.
I guess.
But in a way, it's very much.
That was very Moffat.
It was very much a Moffat. Hey, I set all this amazing stuff up, but didn't quite get to the finish line.
Couldn't figure out how to write myself.
Later run Moffat.
Yeah,
maybe if I make this look clever enough, people will buy it.
And then the fact that the sapling just kind of grows up and detaches and gets to travel with him now.
Yeah, presumably. Yeah,
Makes me wonder if they're setting something up so Alice is they're going to pull a Donna and make Alice forget everything at some point.
What makes you think that?
Her last line of "I won't forget this," it makes it almost seem like it's
telegraphing it.
Yeah, or it's going to be like, that's in hindsight, that's going to be such a bittersweet line.
Could be. I thought maybe it was just one of those nice wrap up with a bow sayings that because this whole season has been about forgetting. And memory loss, that this was kind of the poignant "I won't forget this," and to put a mark on the end of the story. So
I hope that's the case.
I hope so too. I don't know that I could handle Alice being stripped of everything that she's come to really kind of rely on.
Well, and unlike Donna, who has so much growth, Alice has too, but it's such a different kind of growth that's helped her grieve more importantly. I would hate to see Alice stripped back to that grieving person again.
Yeah. It's been for 3 years we've seen Alice, because she's broken at the beginning, and as she travels with the Doctor, she gets healed. She becomes more confident, more self-assertive, and more in touch with the family that she lost. And so to reset that, it would be very bittersweet and it would be very heartbreaking, but I also feel like it would not be very satisfying to go down that road.
I agree.
I would agree too.
Should we move on to 12, or do you guys have anything else?
I don't think I have much else to say about these 2 issues.
So,
Just a note for everybody that, if you're not following the Titan comics, I think it's worth a look into them. We've certainly enjoyed them for the most part. I mean, there's only been a handful of stories that I can tick off on one hand that I think we went, Don't read the ghost stories, but
with the title of the next one, A Confusion of Angels, my initial thought was, I bet Weeping Angels will be in this. And then, as I'm flipping through,
I have a
of course,
synopsis for
we're
this one
doing
whenever
the.
you're ready.
Oh, do you? Flipping through the first part of the book in the splash pages, because we did the collected issues in the graphic novel form, and I get to a host. There's the very first thing I see, and I went, "Oh, it's those angels." All right,
Not the angels.
I did not expect that they were going to have both sets of angels in this. But go ahead with your synopsis.
When the Doctor and his companions are drawn to a transport vessel in deep space, they're pulled into an impossible conflict between the robotic heavenly host and the Weeping Angels.
See, I didn't read the synopsis, so
Featuring
I
the
just
12th
know.
Doctor and fan favorite companions Bill, Nardole, and Missy. That lumps Missy in as a companion.
Oh, it's official now.
Well, she has traveled in the TARDIS.
That's true.
holographically doesn't count.
No, she traveled.
She traveled in...
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, where this is set, yes, she hasn't traveled yet.
I really enjoyed this one.
Did you?
I did.
I did too.
I thought it was very cool. I thought it was very clever. I loved the misdirection because, like you, I read Confusion of Angels, and there was a little part of me that went, because it's a Weeping Angel story.
See, I don't think we've got enough Weeping Angels, to be honest with you.
But the problem is, most of the times when they come back, they're not utilized quite as well. And I thought this did a good job of melding kind of Blink aspects of things and Flesh and Stone aspect of things.
Yeah.
This did a better job of Flesh and Stone than Flesh and Stone did. I mean, really.
Does it count as Flesh and Stone if they're not flesh and blood?
No.
Okay.
I don't know.
Metal and Stone?
Metal and Stone. I just... When you do Blink and you set this thing out and everybody clamors for more, and then Flesh and Stone kind of sort of does some interesting things, but it doesn't, for me it wasn't terribly satisfying. And then obviously Angels Take Manhattan, kind of in that same boat.
Most of that was alright.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
and
all right,
Angels
but it
Take
wasn't.
Manhattan kind of went back to the roots of how the angels work,
Yeah.
basically.
It's just the Statue of Liberty that we have.
Right,
issues with.
yeah.
That could have been so cool. Anyway. But then the comics, we've had, what was it, the Angels of Mons?
Yeah, the one in World War II.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, that
which
was
that
a really
was
good
really,
story.
really good.
Yeah.
And so, in my mind, okay, we've got two really, really good angel stories, and then we've had a kind of a bevy of middle-of-the-road ones. There was that one book that was kind of like, eh. And, they're just kind of there for the most part. So when I saw that, I went, oh, man, it's an angel story. Okay. But then, like you, it's the host. Didn't see that coming. That was
and then
very
I went,
clever.
I thought it was clever that it was the host, and then I went, but I didn't like the host.
I didn't like the host either.
There's not a lot about Voyage of the Dam I did like a whole lot.
I was encouraged that they did something a little different with the host.
But that being said, what they did do with the host, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know about fantastic, but it was good.
No, I think it was fantastic because it was different. It brought back a Doctor Who quote unquote villain and used them in a completely different fashion. Whether they were still villainous or not, I suppose, can be up to interpretation. Because really, the only acts of bad guy that we get from the host are once they've been taken over by the Weeping Angels.
Right.
So that's a very cool, clever, because it kind of returns them back to their mindset.
Right. And you have the one that she fixed that stays loyal all the way to the end.
Yeah,
and fights.
which was interesting.
Yeah, which I thought was really nice.
It was a good take.
There's a part of me
doing
that's a little
something
worried
different.
when we get around to the Vox robots big finish, because it's like, well, they were cool, but can you do something different with them that we haven't already seen? This did something different. And I like it when you can, like White Ghosts. It's like, oh, I thought I knew where this was going. I didn't.
Shadow Proclamation shows up.
Yeah.
And
did not expect to see her back.
I did not expect her either. And in fact, in the first panel where she comes in, I thought she looked vaguely familiar, but it wasn't
There's no way
until
I was going to be able to remember her name.
Well, when the doctor says it, I went, oh, okay, obviously she looks like her, but that can't be her, because I don't know how they'd make this work. But they subtly kind of tell you how they made it work, and I thought that was actually kind of cool, that she really did get her second chance, and she did make the right choices this time. So.
Although I find it odd that she still has the same human bodysuit.
Yeah.
Shouldn't she be Slitheen?
I don't think you could do it without doing that, though, because then I don't think there would.
Because no one would remember her name.
Right.
And if she showed up as a Slitheen, it would just be a Slitheen.
Yeah, and I'd have gone, No, this was actually a good use of a Slitheen.
Because you never actually see the Slitheen.
Right. So, one of the things that bothers me sort of is the Doctor being transported back through time after being touched by an angel. And I get the impression that he went back 100 years or something like that, right?
Right.
And then he had to
That's what he said.
He had to get
He had to go the long way around.
Yeah, but I think the first time I saw that done was clever, but I'm of two minds of it, because part of me thinks that's just such a stretch of the. It's almost like a convenient plot device. Send the Doctor back so that he can set everything up. Don't put him back too far, because 100 years is a blink in the eye for the Doctor, but 100 years of him, I guess what it does is it opens Titan up to say, well, maybe he had some side adventures in those 100 years.
Well, he's stuck on Earth.
And we don't have to have,
that planet.
Bill. But then there's no TARDIS, so, because he has to wait 100 years till he gets back to the TARDIS, and it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems like a convenient trope in this situation.
It's a very
it works
convenient
because
trope.
of it. But.
In time travel stories in general, it's a very convenient trope, as long as you have a protagonist who can wait it out.
Yes.
That's the Futurama, Bender's Big Score, where they send him back in time and he steals something, but then he just walks into wherever the basement of Planet Express is going to be and waits because he's a robot.
Right.
And then they send him back in time again. It's just, okay, that's kind of clever. But you're right. Once you've seen it, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Which I didn't get the impression that he put too much into motion in this circumstance, more just rescuing the people.
Right, yeah.
Well,
that's what he was doing for those 100 years, was helping those refugees.
Right, yeah. Well, and naming a few ships, apparently.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with him doing such a small thing as opposed to, lining up all the pieces.
But
so
that makes it even
more.
more. That makes it more unbelievable that the Doctor would do nothing but round up refugees for 100 years. That seems very implausible, especially for the 13th Doctor or 12th Doctor. I don't know. It just that was a weakness for me in this, and it was a nice surprise. I did have to go back and see what he was wearing when he had the clown mask on and was bringing the people into the crate earlier on.
That panel gave it away. I knew right there. I was like, oh.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as I saw, there's a shot of him where he's got his back to the camera. As soon as I saw the hair, I was like, oh, okay, I know where this is going.
See, I missed it. I had to go back and look. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. That's totally him. But
his hair's a little darker in the previous comic when he's got the clown mask on. But I guess he's in shadow.
I like the fact that the Doctor is kind of taken away, and
Bill
and
panel,
Nardole has to.
That
do their
panel
own thing,
you're
though.
seeing there is late enough in the game that if I had figured it out, I wouldn't have felt so bad. If I had figured it out earlier,
early
would
it would have sucked. Although it was disconcerting because there's this guy in a clown. It was like, when did the Joker show up? Because it almost looks like one of the Dark
I thought that was going to be the
bank robbery.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the antagonist or something there.
And then once it's revealed that this is who he is, and Bill calls him out, I was like, why the clowns are supposed to be funny and comforting? And she's like, no. and I enjoyed that kind of callback to, in many ways, the 12th Doctor being relatively clueless.
Yeah.
also enjoyed the art stylings of this one. I don't know, it wasn't quite. What's it that you call it, Glenn? That 70s, 80s look when with comics, like the old Dave Gibbons stuff. But
I don't know what I've called it before. I don't remember.
There's apparently a term for it, but just the extremely, at least in the first couple issues, really detailed, well-drawn backgrounds. The spaceship that they're on for being a cargo container is gorgeous.
Yeah, there's some good, really, really good artwork in this. Was Missy just really there to retrieve the TARDIS so that? I guess I didn't understand her point in this whole thing. You know, other than to make us think, what's she going to do now that she's got the TARDIS type thing?
Right. Well, and why bother other than keeping the TARDIS away from the angels and prolonging the story?
Right.
Why even send Bill away,
right,
and then have her come right back?
Yeah.
Some of it did feel a bit like padding.
Yeah. It was a good story. I mean, I enjoyed it. What was it? 3 issues together. So,
I thought it was 4.
Maybe it was 4. Made for a good, a good concise story, and the end for now. So,
and for the most part, I liked all the supporting cast.
I really like the fact that we're all caught up now. Because it feels like we've been so behind on year 3.
I enjoyed the sensation early where we've got this spacer crew and we're on a relatively abandoned derelict ship almost is what it feels like. And it feels a little alien because we've got crew members that have gone missing. And then we put Bill in the air ducts and she's going, Ripley, not Dallas, Ripley, not Dallas.
That was funny.
They've really got Bill's voice down.
They really
correctly.
do.
And it just makes me wish we had more of her televised stories. Because I enjoyed her so much as a character.
Even Nardole.
And Nardole too, yeah.
As well.
And even Missy. The dialogue exchanges between them. Missy, a small white lie. Lies have colors. That is exciting. A whole palette to paint with. That's really sounds like a Missy line.
Yeah.
I was looking for, where is it, was she the one who was shuttling the refugees away in the TARDIS? Is that what she was doing during this time?
Yeah, she was doing that at the end.
That's right,
also.
you're right.
Yeah. So she had 2 purposes.
She did. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that until you just said that.
And the kind of dire warning that she gives, one day you'll come across a lost ship dripping in space that you can't save. Ooh, that's a little foreshadowing, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, let me pull this knife out of my heart.
It's like she would remember, but can't.
Yeah, in the end, I thought it was a very nice, strong end to the season.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yep.
And I apologize to you guys for making it so long between comic readings.
The nice thing about this one is you didn't have to remember what came previously in the season.
That's true. This was all nicely
which was part of why I enjoyed it a little bit more.
Yeah, this was all nice and compact story.
Well, if it helps any, I did go back and reread the previous issue with the 11th Doctor.
I didn't think it helped,
and
probably, because it was the mall one, right?
Yeah. It still was fairly disjointed. And it brought back enough of the, we're still dealing with the Scream. Okay, we're still confused with the memory loss. Okay, we're still confused with this.
Yeah, wasn't it? Is that the mall?
No, that was
the
12th Doctor one.
I thought you said Maw.
Oh. Okay, yeah,
Maw,
never mind.
Yeah. But it didn't help much.
Now, I did not go back and look at
if you sat down and read all of them, in one sitting as a mainline them, then it probably would have helped a little bit. But
so still out there is the 7th Doctor miniseries, and then we've got the Jodie Whittaker stuff that's coming out, the Road to stuff.
And the Volume 0.
Volume 0?
Yes.
What's that one?
13th Doctor Volume 0. It's the one where she remembers her adventures.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
But as far as the ongoing Titan lines, we are current.
Yes.
And we'll sprinkle some more of them in as we go. And again, if you're a comic fan, you could do far worse than give these a try. They've really got the voice of the Doctors down.
Cool. Well, what do we got coming up on the schedule, Sean?
Well, coming up on the schedule next week is episode 399. And we will be reviewing Lethbridge Stewart, The Laughing Gnome, Scary Monsters by Simon Forward. This is the first in the new series of Lethbridge Stewart books, which are all subtitled The Laughing Gnome, or all titled The Laughing Gnome with their various subtitles below that. So I imagine there will be kind of sort of an arc present.
Possibly.
We will be talking about that. And then the following week, of course, is our big 400th epiversary. Not quite an anniversary.
Not quite.
Not quite.
No, not quite. One of these times an epiversary will land on an anniversary.
And, of course, we'll be doing some fun and games. We're going to play some Doctor Who games. We're going to give away some stuff. It'll just be kind of a breath of fresh air and fun, and taking a collective break before 401, which is the launch of the new series, and Jodie Whittaker gracing our screens. And will be, of course, 10 episodes worth of new material for you guys to fawn over. And as always, we encourage feedback if you want to talk about what we're reviewing, or if you want to talk about the new episodes of the show, or if you want to talk about us, or if you have questions, or you just want to say hi, you're always welcome to do that.
Also, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can become a patron of the podcast, and your continuing support goes right back into this podcast. And don't forget, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're available on Stitcher. You can listen to us on TuneIn and Player FM. And if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.